My father-in-law declined to eat my cooking and demanded restaurant meals instead. Have you ever been made to feel utterly worthless, year after year, by someone who should have been family? What if that person constantly insulted your passion, your talent, and your very contribution to their son's life, all while secretly loving what you created, completely oblivious to whose hands had crafted it? Oh, the satisfaction of watching my father-in-law's face when he finally discovered the truth was absolutely priceless. I married my husband, Jay, 5 years ago. I loved him from the moment we met, honestly, at a cooking class downtown. We clicked immediately. We bonded over our shared obsession with food, spent our first dates trying every new restaurant we could find, and then, in my tiny apartment kitchen, we'd cook the most elaborate meals together. Jay, bless his heart, would always say he'd never met anyone who could make a simple pasta dish taste like it came straight from a five-star restaurant. I'd just smile and tell him it was in my blood. My grandmother ran a small Italian place in her neighborhood for 40 years. Cooking was my legacy. But Jay's father, Leonard, he didn't care about any of that. Leonard decided he didn't like me before he even met me. Jay told me later that his dad had someone else picked out for him, the daughter of a business partner, someone with money and the right last name. Me. I was a line cook at a bistro, buried in student loans, living in an apartment the size of Leonard's walk-in closet. Clearly, I wasn't good enough for his son. The first time I cooked for the family was Thanksgiving, right after we got engaged. I poured my heart into that meal. 3 days of prep, turkey with herb butter, homemade cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes with roasted garlic, fresh bread rolls, 3 different pies. I wanted to impress Leonard. I wanted to show him I was worthy of his son, that I had something real to bring to the table. Literally, Leonard showed up, took one look at my perfectly laid spread, and surveyed it like I'd served him garbage. Not feeling well, he grumbled. Can't eat heavy food. Then he pulled out his phone. Ordered delivery from a steakhouse across town. He sat there at my table, eating his delivered meal while everyone else ate what I made. Jay said nothing. His mother, Phyllis, said nothing. They all just pretended it was normal. I told myself it was a one-time thing. It was not a one-time thing. Every single time I cooked for a family gathering after that, Leonard refused to eat. Always an excuse. His stomach was bothering him. He was on a special diet. He'd eaten a late lunch. The excuses changed, but the result was always the same. He'd order food from somewhere else and eat it right in front of everyone, while my dishes sat untouched on his plate. Christmas dinner, he ordered Chinese food. Easter brunch, pancakes from a diner. At Jay's birthday party, he ordered pizza and declared my lasagna undercooked, even though it was absolutely perfect. He never even tasted it. He just looked at it and decided it wasn't good enough. But the worst part? It was how he talked about my cooking to other people. He told his friends his daughter-in-law couldn't boil water. He told relatives Jay was wasting away because there was never any real food in the house. He told anyone who would listen that I was a terrible cook who didn't know the difference between salt and sugar. None of it was true. I was a professional cook. I'd trained under chefs who ran award-winning kitchens. I could make dishes that brought tears to people's eyes. But Leonard decided I was incompetent before he ever tasted a single bite, and nothing would change his mind. Jay, bless his heart, he defended me sometimes. But not enough. My father's stubborn, he'd say. Set in his ways. He'll come around eventually. Just ignore it. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one being publicly humiliated at every single family dinner. 2 years into our marriage, I got a new job. A restaurant called Bellini's was opening downtown and they needed a head chef. The owner, a woman named Grace, had eaten the bistro where I worked and remembered my food. She said I was exactly what she was looking for. Someone who could make classic Italian dishes with a modern twist. She told me I could design the entire menu myself. I took the job immediately. I didn't tell Leonard or anyone in Jay's family where I worked. Jay knew, of course, but I asked him to keep it quiet. I wanted to build something on my own, without Leonard's opinions getting in the way. Jay understood. Bellini's opened that spring and became popular fast. Food critics wrote glowing reviews. Weekend reservations were filling up months in advance. People drove from other cities just to try the braised short ribs, the handmade gnocchi, the tiramisu that melted on your tongue. I was so incredibly proud of what I had built. Then, about 8 months after opening, I found out Leonard had been eating at Bellini's regularly. Phyllis mentioned it casually at a Sunday dinner, where Leonard, true to form, was eating delivered sushi while everyone else enjoyed my herb-roasted chicken. She said Leonard had found a new favorite restaurant. Went there at least twice a month. Always ordered the same thing, the mushroom risotto and the chicken piccata. He tells everyone it's the best Italian food he's ever tasted, she beamed. I just smiled. That's nice, I said. Nothing else. For the next year, I watched. Leonard would insult my home cooking while unknowingly praising my restaurant cooking. One Sunday dinner, I watched him wipe sauce off his fingers from his takeout barbecue and tell his brother on speakerphone that the restaurant downtown made the best Italian food in the state. I put down my fork. Right then and there, I made my decision. His birthday was coming up in 4 weeks. That gave me plenty of time. Plenty of time to plan something he would never, ever forget. Monday morning, I got to Bellini's. Early. Found Grace in her office, going over invoices. I closed the door behind me. Sat down. She looked up and must have seen something in my face, because she put down her pen and gave me her full attention. I told her everything. About Leonard. About 5 years of rejected meals and cruel comments. About him eating at Bellini's twice a month, praising my food, while telling everyone I couldn't cook. Grace listened, without interrupting. And when I finished, she leaned back in her chair and started to laugh. Not a polite laugh. A real, deep, belly laugh that made her wipe tears from her eyes. She said Leonard sounded like a piece of work, and asked what I wanted to do about it. I told her his birthday was next month. His family would probably want to celebrate somewhere nice. Maybe somewhere like Bellini's, I suggested, trying to keep my voice even. Grace's smile got wider. I'll make sure you have the best table available, she said. And do you want me to personally introduce you to the birthday boy? I told her that would be perfect. Jay noticed a change in me that week. I hummed while cooking dinner. I smiled when Phyllis called to discuss Leonard's birthday plans. I even volunteered to help organize the celebration, when normally I'd stay as far away from Leonard's events as possible. Wednesday night, Jay found me in the kitchen, testing a new risotto recipe. Why are you so happy about my father's birthday? He asked, a hint of suspicion in his voice. I kept my eyes on the pan, slowly stirring the arborio rice. The question hung in the air for a minute. Then I told him my plan. I explained that I wanted to host Leonard's birthday dinner at Bellini's. I wanted him to enjoy my food one more time, before finding out who made it. That I was tired of being treated like I was worthless when I had built something incredible. Jay put both hands flat on the counter, stared at the cutting board. He looked horrified. My father will be humiliated. He'll be angry at both of us. This will cause problems in the family for years. I stopped stirring, turned to face him. Leonard has humiliated me at every family gathering for 5 years, I pointed out, my voice dangerously calm. He orders takeout while my food gets cold. He tells everyone I can't boil water while eating my cooking twice a month. Maybe, I suggested, my eyes locking with his, it's his turn to feel uncomfortable for once. Jay opened his mouth, closed it, looked at me for a long time. Then slowly he nodded. If this is what you need, he said, his voice quiet, then I'll support you. I went back to stirring my risotto, and felt something tight in my chest finally loosen. Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Phyllis. I wiped my hands on my apron, answered. I'm calling about Leonard's birthday dinner next week, she said. Leonard loves that new Italian place downtown, Bellini's. Maybe we should try it for his celebration. She asked if I knew anything about it, since it was in my neighborhood. I told her I'd heard good things, that the food was supposed to be excellent, and that I'd be happy to make a reservation for the family. Phyllis sounded so pleased. It's so nice you're taking initiative with family planning, she gushed. Leonard will be thrilled. I promised to take care of everything. Ended the call. Then walked straight into Grace's office and confirmed the reservation for 8 people on Saturday night. Friday morning, I called Leah, my sous chef, into the prep kitchen. Spread out my notes on the stainless steel counter. Leah knew almost everything about my life, about Leonard's behavior, the delivered Chinese food, the pizza I'd vented to her countless times. Now, I showed her the menu I'd planned for Leonard's birthday. Mushroom risotto with truffle oil, chicken piccata with lemon and capers, butternut squash appetizer with brown butter and sage, fresh pasta with wild mushrooms, tiramisu for dessert, everything Leonard had ever ordered or praised at Bellini's, plus a few new seasonal items. Leah read through the list and started grinning. This, she declared, is the best revenge I have ever heard of. She promised to make every single dish absolutely perfect. We spent the next hour going over prep lists and timing. Leah squeezed my shoulder. Leonard, she said, a wicked glint in her eye, is about to get exactly what he deserves. The week crawled by. I worked double shifts just to keep busy, to stop myself from overthinking. Wednesday night, Jay tried one more time to talk me out of it. We were getting ready for bed. He sat on the edge of the mattress, his head in his hands. My father will never forgive us for this. He holds grudges for years. Family dinners will be impossible after Saturday night. I sat down next to him, took his hand. I told him I was tired of being treated like I was worthless, that I had built something incredible and deserved respect, that I needed him to support me, even if it made his father uncomfortable. Jay squeezed my hand. I'm with you, he said, his voice quiet but firm. I should have stood up to my father years ago. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I leaned my head on his shoulder and felt ready for whatever came next. Thursday afternoon, Brandon, one of our best servers, stopped me between lunch and dinner service. He'd waited on Leonard dozens of times. Leonard was in for lunch earlier this week, he reported, with some business associates. Spent 20 minutes raving about the new seasonal menu. Ordered the butternut squash appetizer. Told everyone at his table it was the best thing he'd eaten all month. I smiled, thanked Brandon. Then I went back to the kitchen and added that butternut squash dish to Leonard's birthday tasting menu. He would praise it on Saturday night, before he knew I made it. The thought made me smile for the rest of my shift. Saturday morning, I woke up before my alarm. My stomach felt tight. My hands shook a little when I made coffee. Jay asked if I was okay. Nervous, I admitted, but ready. This felt like the moment everything would change. I got to Bellini's 3 hours before the reservation. Went straight to the kitchen. The other cooks were already prepping, but I took over the station for Leonard's birthday menu. I made the pasta dough myself, rolled it by hand, cleaned and trimmed the mushrooms, made the butternut squash puree from scratch. Leah worked next to me, glancing over to make sure I was holding up. Around 5 p.m., she put down her knife, squeezed my shoulder. You've earned this moment, she reminded me. Your food speaks for itself. Leonard's about to learn what everyone else already knows. I took a deep breath, nodded, then got back to work. 6:30 p.m. came faster than I expected. I heard the hostess's cheerful voice, looked through the kitchen window. Leonard walked in first. Dark suit, huge smile. Phyllis followed. Jay came last, and his eyes found mine through the window. He looked pale, but he gave me a small, encouraging nod. The hostess led them to the best table in the restaurant, the one with a perfect view of the open kitchen, the one where Leonard could watch the chef work. He sat down, looked around with obvious pleasure. Phyllis kept glancing toward the kitchen, hoping to see the famous chef everyone talked about. I stepped back from the window, focused on my prep station. Everything had to be perfect. Brandon appeared at the kitchen window a few minutes later, order pad in hand. I watched him take drink orders, then entree selections. Leonard pointed at items on the menu, talking animatedly. Brandon wrote everything down, headed back to the kitchen, handed me the order slip, with a knowing smile. Mushroom risotto, chicken piccata, butternut squash appetizer. Exactly as I predicted. Leonard had even added the seasonal squash, just like he did at lunch. Jay had ordered the pasta, but I could see his knee bouncing under the table. I caught his eye. He looked terrified. I turned back to my station, started plating the butternut squash appetizer. Every element had to be flawless. The squash smooth, brown butter perfect, sage leaves crispy. I worked slowly, carefully, until the plate looked like art. Then I handed it to Brandon, watched him carry it across the dining room. Leonard's face lit up when Brandon set the plate in front of him. He picked up his fork immediately, cut into the squash. He closed his eyes when he took the first bite. I saw his shoulders relax. He chewed slowly, wanted to taste every flavor. Then he opened his eyes, started talking to the whole table. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw him gesture at the plate, saw him smile, nod, saw Phyllis lean over to taste a bite from his plate. She smiled too, said something that made Leonard laugh. He took another bite, kept talking, probably telling them this was the best Italian food in the city, probably saying whoever ran this kitchen was a genius, praising the chef. Without knowing he was praising me, I turned back to my station, started on his risotto. My hands were steady now. Everything was going exactly according to plan. I plated the risotto with careful precision, each grain of rice shining, parmesan shaved perfectly, mushrooms arranged in a small circle, a single sage leaf for color, then the chicken piccata, sauce bright tangy. I tasted it 3 times. Capers distributed evenly, lemon slices paper thin. I placed everything exactly where it needed to go, stepped back, looked at both dishes. They were perfect. Brandon appeared. I handed him the plates. He gave me a quick nod, carried them out. I watched through the kitchen window as he set them down in front of Leonard. Leonard looked at the food like someone had just given him a gift. Picked up his fork. Cut into the chicken first. I saw him close his eyes again. Chew. Put down his fork to say something to Phyllis. She leaned forward. He gestured at the plate with both hands. He was telling her how good it was. Telling her this was why he came here twice a month. Telling her the chef at Bellini's understood Italian food in a way most people never would. I felt something tight in my chest begin to loosen. He was praising my cooking. Actually praising it. He just didn't know it yet. I turned away from the window. Focused on the next order. Table 7 wanted gnocchi and short ribs. Table 3 the pasta special. I worked through each dish with complete focus. Every plate that left my kitchen had to be flawless tonight. Grace appeared in the kitchen doorway about 20 minutes later. She caught my eye. Tilted her head toward the dining room. I nodded. She smiled. Walked back out. I watched her cross the restaurant floor in her elegant black dress. She stopped at Leonard's table, just as Brandon was clearing their empty appetizer plates. Leonard looked up. His whole face changed. He stood up immediately, reached out to shake her hand. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw his mouth moving quickly, gesturing at the empty plates, smiling wider than I'd ever seen him smile at any family dinner. Grace shook his hand, said something back. Leonard kept talking, probably telling her this was his favorite restaurant, how he brought all his important clients here, how he discovered this place before it got famous. Grace listened, nodded, smiled. Then she said something else, and pointed back toward the kitchen. Leonard's expression shifted to interest. He said something. Grace nodded again. She turned, looked directly at me through the kitchen window. I took a deep breath. This was it. I untied my chef's coat, slipped it off. Underneath, I wore my white chef's jacket. My name, stitched over the left pocket in dark blue thread. I smoothed down the front, walked out of the kitchen. The dining room felt different from this side. Quieter, somehow more exposed. I could feel other diners glancing at me as I crossed the floor. Saw them registering the chef's whites. Looking curious, I kept my eyes on Leonard's table. On Leonard, standing there in his expensive suit. On Phyllis, sitting with her hands folded in her lap. On Jay, gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles had gone white. Grace smiled at me as I approached. She put her hand on my shoulder, turned to face Leonard. She introduced me as her head chef, as the person who designed every dish on the menu, as the creator of the mushroom risotto and chicken piccata he had been ordering for the past 8 months. The table went completely silent. Leonard stared at me, his mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. His face started to change color, started to go red around his collar, then up his neck, into his cheeks. He looked at my chef's jacket, at my name embroidered over the pocket, at the kitchen behind me where I had just been working. He sat down heavily in his chair. The movement was sudden enough that his water glass shook. Phyllis made a small noise. Her hand went to her mouth. Her eyes went wide. She looked at Leonard, then at me, then back at Leonard again. Jay reached across the table. His hand found mine, squeezed. His palm was sweating. His fingers trembled against my skin, but he held on. I looked at Leonard, kept my voice calm, professional. I'm glad you've been enjoying the food, I told him. I mentioned that the mushroom risotto he ordered every single time was actually my grandmother's recipe, the one she taught me when I was 12 years old, the one I'd been making for more than half my life. The other diners at nearby tables had started to notice. I could see them watching, could feel their attention shifting toward us, but I refused to look away from Leonard. This was my kitchen, my restaurant, my food he had been eating and praising for months. Leonard's face was completely red now. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally, words came out. I had no idea you worked here. His voice sounded strange, tight. I smiled. That's true. I deliberately never mentioned it. Then he said something about restaurant food being different from home cooking. About how cooking in a professional kitchen was not the same as cooking for a family. I kept smiling. I reminded him he had never actually tasted my home cooking. I pointed out that every time I made dinner for the family, he ordered delivery before I could serve him a single bite, that he had spent 5 years refusing to try anything I made while sitting at my table, that he had told everyone I couldn't cook while eating food from my restaurant twice a month. Phyllis spoke up. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. I always thought your food looked beautiful, she said. I always wondered why Leonard never tried it. Leonard turned to look at her. His expression was sharp, angry, but Phyllis did not look away. She kept her eyes on his face, and I realized this might be the first time she had ever questioned him, in front of other people. The first time she had ever called him out on anything. Jay stood up. The movement was sudden. His chair scraped against the floor. He put his arm around me, around my shoulders. He looked at his father, and his voice was stronger than I had ever heard it. "I'm proud of what she's built," he said, his gaze unwavering. "And I'm tired of watching you disrespect my wife. If you can't treat her with basic courtesy, then we won't be attending family dinners anymore." My eyes burned. I felt tears starting, but I blinked them back. Jay had never stood up to his father like this. Never chosen me so clearly, so publicly, over Leonard's approval. Grace stepped in smoothly. She suggested we continue this conversation after dinner, offered Leonard's table complimentary dessert, said everyone needed a chance to calm down. Her voice was warm but firm, professional. She gave me a small nod, and I understood. I turned, walked back to the kitchen. My legs felt shaky. Leah was waiting by my station. She grabbed me in a hug before I could say anything. "You handled that perfectly," she whispered. Leonard's face was priceless. Everyone in the kitchen was watching. I realized my hands had stopped shaking. I had finally said what I needed to say. I had stood in my own kitchen and made Leonard face the truth he had been avoiding for 5 years. I went back to work. There were still orders to fill, dishes to plate, a restaurant full of people who came here to eat my food. I focused on the pasta for table 7, on the short ribs for table 3, on making everything perfect, because that was what I did. That was who I was. The rest of Leonard's dinner was quiet. I watched through the window as Brandon brought out their main courses. As Leonard cut into his chicken piccata, took a bite, he chewed slowly, carefully, like he was tasting it for the first time, even though he'd ordered it dozens of times before. He looked at the plate differently now, studied each element, the sauce, the capers, the way the lemon was arranged. Phyllis tried her pasta, said something to Jay. Jay nodded, but kept glancing toward the kitchen, toward me. When they finished their entrees, Brandon brought out the complimentary dessert. 3 pieces of tiramisu on small white plates. Leonard ate every bite of his. He didn't say anything, but he finished it completely. They left about 30 minutes later. I watched them stand up, gather their coats. Leonard walked past the kitchen window without looking in, but then he stopped, turned, nodded once in my direction. It was small, brief, but it was more acknowledgement than I had ever gotten from him before. Jay and I went home after my shift. We sat on our couch, talked for hours, about his father, about our marriage, about how we couldn't keep letting Leonard control our lives. Jay apologized for not defending me sooner, for letting his father treat me that way for so long, for caring more about keeping peace than standing up for his wife. He promised things would be different. He said tonight showed him he could choose me over his father's approval, that he should have done it years ago. I believed him, not because his words were perfect, but because I had seen him stand up at that table, heard his voice, felt his arm around my shoulders. That was real. That was something we could build on. 3 days passed before my phone rang. Phyllis. She asked if I wanted to meet for lunch. Just the 2 of us. Her voice sounded different, softer, less careful. I said yes. We picked a small cafe near her neighborhood. When I arrived, she was already sitting at a table by the window. She stood up when she saw me and hugged me before I could even put my purse down. She said she needed to apologize, that she had stayed silent for too many years while Leonard treated me badly. She said she was raised to keep peace in the family no matter what, to smooth things over, to make everyone comfortable, even when someone was being cruel. She said watching Leonard's face at the restaurant made her see how wrong she had been, how much damage her silence had caused. She wanted to build a real relationship with me, not the fake, polite one we had been pretending at for 5 years. I told her I appreciated that it meant more than she knew. We ordered sandwiches and talked for 2 hours about everything except Leonard, about her garden, my work at the restaurant, places we both wanted to travel someday. It felt easy, natural, like we were finally meeting each other for the first time. The following week, Leonard showed up at our apartment door. He was holding a piece of paper, a reservation confirmation for Bellini's. He asked if I would be cooking that night. I told him I worked every Friday and Saturday. He nodded. Good, he said. He was bringing some business associates. Wanted to show off the best Italian restaurant in the city. He didn't apologize, didn't say he was wrong, or sorry, but he was standing in my doorway, asking about my work. acknowledging what I did. It was something. Jay stood behind me, his hand on my shoulder. I could feel him holding his breath. Leonard looked at both of us for a long moment. Then he said, "I'll see you at Sunday dinner." He turned and walked back down the hallway before either of us could respond. Sunday dinner was at Leonard and Phyllis's house. I made lasagna, the same lasagna Leonard had called undercooked at Jay's birthday party 3 years ago, the same one he refused to taste. I layered the noodles and meat sauce and ricotta cheese the way my grandmother taught me, baked it until the edges were golden. The cheese bubbled. When we arrived, Leonard was setting the table. Not Phyllis. Leonard. He had put out the good plates and cloth napkins. He took the lasagna from my hands, carried it to the table himself. We all sat down. Leonard served himself a large portion, cut into it with his fork, took a bite, chewed slowly, then another bite, and another. He didn't say it was good, didn't compliment the flavors or the texture, but he ate 3 full servings. When Phyllis asked if there was any left, he told her she should get the recipe. Phyllis smiled at me across the table. She said she was sure I would be happy to teach her. Leonard kept eating. Things aren't perfect now. Leonard still struggles with admitting he was wrong. He doesn't apologize for the years of insults and rejection. He doesn't talk about what happened at his birthday dinner, but he treats me with basic respect. He eats the food I cook at family dinners. He brings clients to Bellini's twice a month, tells them his daughter-in-law is the chef. He brags about the restaurant to his friends, about the awards we've won, about the reservations that book up months in advance. Jay and I are stronger now. We set boundaries with his family. We don't accept behavior that hurts us just to keep the peace. We choose each other first. I feel proud every time I put on my chef's whites, every time I walk into my kitchen at Bellini's, every time I plate a dish that I designed and perfected. I earn my success. I built something real, with my own hands, my own skills. I don't need Leonard's approval to feel worthy. I never did. You know, sometimes the sweetest victories are the ones where you don't even have to raise your voice. Just let your actions speak for themselves. This whole thing taught me so much about standing up for myself and finding validation from within. What about you? Have you ever had to find a creative way to shut down a bully, especially a family member? How did you handle it? Tell me in the comments below. I'd really love to hear your experiences.